what really annoys me is the fact that you can't talk about this because then you are like lambasted this horrible, horrible person just by pointing out uncomfortable truths. Why is that okay?
I don't think you're calling out when you say things like "I'm just pointing out uncomfortable truths," that comes off as a dog whistle. That's something that like right wingers for a long time will have used as a defense against any criticism. Is I'm just asking questions. I'm just telling the brutal, honest truth. I'm just telling it how it is. The uncomfortable truth. Like it just comes off as a little sussy to me.
Hey everybody, today we're debating immigration and we are starting right now with Brittany's opening statement. Thanks so much for being with us, Brittany. The floor is all yours.
Okay. All right, so I did write something up. I don't normally like to read things because I'm a little blind, but I'm going to do it anyways. So before I give my opening, I just want to say I'm not normally on this side of the debate. In fact, this is my very first debate. So this will be a new one for me, hoping Xanderhal will be kind enough not to use those crafty little voodoo debate bro tricks on me and have a good debate discussion, which I think he will. But for those who don't already know me, I was once the left-wing host of Politically Provoked. Over the past year, that went from left-wing host to centrist host to now just host. Got into politics through Trump, hated him, thought he was the worst president to ever take office. I supported basically every left-wing policy you can think of. Open borders was one of those things. I've gone through a lot of the same views as most lefties have, and one of those has been the white guilt that we see everywhere. So I thought getting straight white men out of power would be a good thing, and white men have just been horrible for us. Then came the red pill and a guy named Little Timmy. Now, I'm hoping today Xanderhal might be able to unred pill me, because I've been looking for somebody to do that, and as of yet, nobody has managed to get it done, so maybe you can be that guy. If you don't already know who Little Timmy is, he is a hypothetical character of what happens when white people become a minority. So basically, he is now the only white kid in a class of blacks, Latinos, and all the other groups we have living here. And every single minority group seems to have some sort of grievance against white people. And why shouldn't they, given our history, everything we are being pumped with, slavery, Jim Crow, CRT, all the horrible things white people have done, and all the anti-white rhetoric that's going through. And it's basically mainstream now. So it's not going to be good for little Timmy when he's the only white kid, and I don't think white people will be given the same protections as minority groups currently have. Because most of the sentiment you hear is, oh well, they have it coming. So if it's like that when we are still the majority, what's it going to be like when we are the minority? That kind of stuff really concerns me, and no one has been able to address those concerns, or ease some of those fears. So again, maybe Xanderhal will be able to change that, as I'm open to hearing it. One thing we can say is, white people becoming a minority is basically inevitable at this point. So for me, I want to slow down the process as much as possible, and closing the borders is a good first step. Now, personally, I don't care about a multiracial and multicultural society, as I don't have any of my own issues with anyone else, and I have no hate in my heart for anyone. I wish it wasn't like this, but this is the reality, and a multiracial society has not worked. Lefties love to paint this ideal world we wish we lived in, but that doesn't tend to align with reality. And when you point those things out, you are called a racist, a Nazi, or a bigot, instead of just pointing out uncomfortable truths. Perhaps I never took any issue with this because I wasn't able to see the damage it was actually causing until someone pointed it out in a way that made sense. Not to mention everything that happened with the summer riots, which was also a huge wake-up call that made it clear to me I just don't like the direction things are heading. So as I started to think about it more in conversations I've had with other lefties, that kind of future became a pretty easy thing for me to see happening. Why we have so many white liberals pushing this narrative is beyond me, and I wish more lefties would wake up to how dangerous some of the rhetoric is and the kind of damage it is causing. But I used to be one of those lefties. So until someone can unred pill me, those days are over, and it's time to close the borders. Xanderhal, you are up.
Thank you very much for that opening, Brittany. And I want to let you know, folks, if it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, we are a neutral platform hosting debates on science, religion, and politics. We hope you feel welcome no matter what walk of life you are from. Thrilled to have you here. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for many juicy debates coming up. For example, does Islam require the domination of, or I should say, does liberalism require the domination of Islam nations, between Destiny and Daniel Hikachu, coming up at our in-person conference this month? It's going to be juicy, and you don't want to miss it. So with that, we're going to jump into Xander's opening statement. Thanks so much for being with us. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have much in the way of opening statements. When it comes to a situation like this, as Brittany said, the influx of obviously non-white people into this country and many other white countries is going to continue to happen just naturally. This is the way that humanity has acted for a long time. We're going to integrate. We're going to intermarry, mingle and whatnot. It's just something that's going to inevitably happen. I think the main issue that I have with Brittany's entire argument is that the onus is on her to prove that this is a real problem that's actually happening. The reason why I struggle to create an opening statement, I guess, is because there's not much that I feel like I have to argue from the get-go, right? Immigration is good. It's good for the economy. Seems that exposure to people of different races and ethnicities is good to prevent racism. Seems to help our society. You mentioned that multiracial societies haven't worked. I'm not sure if you're aware, but America is the most successful country on the planet and is quite multiracial. Yeah, that's really all there is to say. We can go back and forth if you want. I wrote down some of your points, and I guess if you want to, we can go one by one.
You got it.
Yeah.
We'll jump into an open conversation then.
Did you want to address something in specific I said, or do you want me to?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Do you want to start with the little Timmy question?
Sure.
Yeah, so the funny thing about the little Timmy question or the little Timmy hypothetical is it's not even really a hypothetical. Stuff like that happens on both sides today. There are black students who are made fun of in majority white schools or whatever, and there are white students in majority black schools that get made fun of for being white. I don't know why you use this hypothetical or this little Timmy question as an example of how racial animus in this country could just suddenly flip sides and we could see an anti-white society. It just doesn't really seem like we're heading down that road. That kind of thing happens now. This seems like if you want to prevent a problem like this, the solution is exposure. People who are exposed to people of other races more often tend to be less racist. What you're advocating for, a shutdown on immigration, a slowing down of the integration of different races and ethnicities into our society, is only going to result in more racially based tribalism. It's only going to result in more of that racial animosity. Things like Jim Crow and things like segregation only increased the amount of tension between the races. It didn't make things better.
Do you think there is no anti-white hate that goes on?
Of course there is. Matter of fact, I've been debating a lot of these people, and funnily enough, you mentioned that it was mostly white liberals pushing this sort of anti-white narrative, and I think we disagree on a lot on what this anti-white narrative may be. But one thing I do want to point out is that there are people that I call out that claim to be on the left who are absolutely anti-white, and I think also anti-black. I think if you are racist towards white people, if you are against the idea of races integrating, then you are just as much a danger to the rights and the liberty of white people as you are to black people. An example of this is Hoteps. Hoteps are radical black separatists who want an ethno-state and will work with neo-Nazis to achieve it. I think that type of behavior, that actual anti-white racism you see from that group, is not coming from white liberals at all. They hate liberals. They hate BLM. These contemporary left-wing movements that are advocating for racial justice have little to no connection to actual substantial groups that push anti-white hate. Is there white guilt out there? Are there cringy people out there who behave in a certain way because they're white and give black people a pass on anything? Absolutely. And I think on a case-by-case basis it's worth working against those people. But to just put up a shield and say, no, we got to stop immigration, we got to cut down on it, we got to stop this white replacement thing, which we can get into more in a minute because I don't even agree with the theory there. I don't know. It just seems like you're going about solving this potential problem in the exact wrong way.
How is it the wrong way? I mean, again, because it's literally mainstream right now for you to be anti-white. It's okay. Like, you see it everywhere.
Give me an example of mainstream anti-whiteness?
Wasn't that in the Coca-Cola meetings or something they were talking about? I would have to actually look this up, but I remember there was an article about how they were talking about anti-white stuff. I have a bunch of quotes, actually, that I can pull up, too, if you want to, that are very mainstream. Let me pull them up.
But what did they say? I mean, you can criticize any individual case. I'm fine with that. The problem is that you're broadening this to be a massive issue at the left.
Is.
The entire idea behind at least what I advocate for is a rising tide raises all ships. We're not trying to take white people out of power and replace them with black people in power. We're not trying to take white people out of the country and replace them. I'm sure you've got plenty of examples of people on the left being enabling anti-white racism or even perpetuating it? Why not call those instances out individually?
Let me just show you a few examples of like how mainstream it is and how okay it is. So you had, let's see here. We got from the Don Lemon saying white men are a domestic terror threat. Anderson Cooper, whites becoming minority is an exciting transformation for our country. Van Jones, even the most liberal, well-intentioned white person has a racist virus in his or her brain that can be activated at an instance. John Brennan, I am increasingly embarrassed to be a white male these days. I mean, I can keep going on and on.
Hold on. Okay. You don't have to read me quotes
I'm
from
just telling you that it's this,
prominent
like,
people who
mainstream.
said iffy things.
Hold on, this is literally mainstream to be anti-white, and if it's that way when we are the majority, what is it going to be like when we're the minority?
Don't you think that maybe the tendency for people to engage in rhetoric that maybe pokes fun at or is sometimes even hostile towards white people might be because our society has come to an understanding broadly that the amount of objective harm caused by jokes or comments at the expense of white people typically don't have that same outcome? I think why you see a lot less... Hold on. I think that's why you see a lot less pushback against that kind of thing. Is it okay? No, I don't know the context to every quote that you just listed to me, but if the context is as you said it was, then I don't like any of those people and I don't like what they said. And you can call those people out on their individual, like what they've said. But I don't think there's a trend in the left to be anti-white. I don't think it's nearly as big as you're making out to be. And trust me, listen, Brittany, I get called no-lip white boy by hoteps and literal anti-white racists every single day. Hoteps are a radical group of usually black activists that typically call themselves black separatists. They're in favor of a black ethno-state, and they're willing to work with neo-Nazis and white supremacists to achieve it.
So maybe
they typically hate Jewish people and stuff like that. They're basically black Nazis.
So basically, these are people that are also looking out for their own self-interest and realize that being around people that are going to hate them is not really working out for them either. I mean, I don't know if that's technically a horrible thing. I think maybe it's just kind of, self-preservation on their own parts. And
I mean, I don't know what hating the Jews and claiming that
I don't know about
what's her name? What I'm trying to remember her name. She was in the Holocaust. She was in the attic. She wrote the book. Anne Frank. Yeah, Anne Frank. They hate Anne Frank. Listen, all right, I'm tired, okay? They hate Anne Frank. They think she was a fake Jew and deserved to die in the Holocaust. I don't know what that has to do with self-preservation, but
well, yeah, I don't know about all that, but I have seen some of these like black nationalists who kind of push for a lot of the same things that some of the white nationalists will push for, where they want to separate. And I don't know if that's such a bad thing. Why live with people that hate you? I mean...
do you think white people hate black people?
I think that there are a lot of problems that happen in this country due to a multiracial society that we can't address because there's so much infighting. I was looking up, actually, for this debate, I was looking up what the 10 happiest countries are. You want to know what they are? Can I give them to you? I'm going to give them to you anyways. All right.
I'm pretty sure they're like Scandinavian countries, right?
I'm going to do it, Xander. So, number 1, Switzerland. Number 2, Iceland. Number 3, Denmark, Norway, Canada, Finland, Netherlands, Sweden, New Zealand, Australia. Do you sense a theme there?
Yeah, so most of them are social democracies with a lot of
but maybe they are like that because they're also
social safety
countries that are able to address a lot of those issues. Do you know there's studies that show when you are scared, you become more conservative. When you are liberal, you're going to become
people are afraid of the unknown, and what you're advocating for is to make brown people more unknown to white people, and vice versa. What you're advocating for, all the data and everything that we've collected having to do with exposure to other races has shown that contact with people who aren't the same race as you, it just explicitly massively decreases the likelihood of you being racist or holding racist ideas. Like what you're advocating for right now will only make different races more afraid of other races because they're going to be more unknown. Or less familiar.
I mean, I get that at this point there's nothing we could really technically do about this. I'm not somebody who's saying, let's go round up all the people that are different races or whatever and send them back. I'm realistic. But I do think that we can kind of slow down the process of how fast this is happening, because what's happening, and I'm noticing it big time, and again, I know people don't believe me, but I really was left wing. I was very left wing, and I had all these policies. I was for open borders. I didn't see any problems with this, but maybe it was the riots that happened that kind of like freaked me out, and then hearing it in a way that really did resonate. But what do you think is going to happen when you are bringing in all these different people and you are teaching them how bad white people are and all the bad things that white people are? And do you think that they're not going to end up hating white people?
What are they teaching in school that you think is making people hate white people?
So I was actually so every time I talk about critical race theory, I'm getting different definitions. I feel like maybe that's somewhat to do with the fact we live in a country where every state kind of teaches things differently, so you don't really know exactly what each state is doing. But I did look up, okay, what critical race theory, and here's what it is. So critical race theory is an intellectual movement and a framework of legal analysis according to which race is a culturally invented category used to oppress people of color, and the law and legal institutions of the United States are inherently racist insofar they function to create and maintain social, political, and economic inequalities between white people and non-whites. And then, hold on, why is critical race theory important? Critical race theory is important because it potentially provides a more realistic understanding of white racism in the U.S. as not merely a set of negative attitudes toward other racial groups, but also a body of law and legal practices whose real-world effect is the oppression of people of color, especially African Americans. These things being taught, these things being taught in our schools, showing how bad white people are and all these horrible things that white people are doing, and all
they're not teaching this in schools. The things that are getting taught in schools, the things these Republican politicians are trying to clamp down on and ban in our schools, are things like reading about Ruby Bridges and MLK. That's legitimately what they're trying to ban. They don't want slavery to be taught. They don't want Jim Crow or segregation to be taught. What you're advocating for, what you're saying right now, and I know you won't say it, but it's what you mean. You believe that teaching students the actual history of this country, a history that unfortunately does involve white people doing a lot of really bad, horrible, racist shit. I'm sorry, but that's just the history of our country, and that's the history of a lot of countries out there. If teaching the truth results in having this outcome, then we need to engage in different types of rhetoric to help combat whatever white guilt or anti-white sentiment that you may think is becoming a huge problem. And there is people out there that are like that. And like I said, argue against them individually. But what you're arguing right now, at least it seems to me, is that teaching kids the reality of what this country has been and what has happened is going to result in people becoming more anti-white. And thus, we need to either not teach that or just keep non-white people out of the country, or find some way to slow down the influx of non-white people into the country, because God knows what happens if they learn that white people did slavery. You know, they might go out there, and this reminds me, like, I'm sorry, and I don't mean to be like condescending or mean or anything, but this reminds me, I was in 4th grade, and I was like, I think I was 9 years old. It was 2008. And Obama had just gotten elected. It was the day after the election. You know, Obama that morning had been announced, like, yep, Obama's new president. And we were on the playground, 4th grade, and there's this girl that I went to school with named Eden sitting on a bench on the playground crying. And I walk up to her and I ask her, why are you crying? And she says she's scared that Obama is going to bring back slavery, but for white people, and it's going to force white people to become slaves as payback for, like, slavery. And she was crying her eyes out. She fully believed this. And this is what this reminds me of. That thought process is what this reminds me of. Do you believe that, like, the minority groups in this country are going to try to take revenge on white people?
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you say the last part again? You said that a white person was worried that Obama. Wait, I'm sorry.
When I was in 4th grade, one of my classmates, the day after Obama got elected, I went to school, and it was I think it was on a Wednesday.
We don't have to do the whole setup. Just give me.
Yeah, I just told you the story. One of my classmates, she was white, sitting on the bench at recess, crying because she thought that as payback for slavery, Obama was going to bring back slavery for white people and enslave white people. Okay. And it seems like, and I'm not saying what you're claiming is on the same level of ridiculousness as that, though. It's close, but I
feel
think
like
the
you're
thought process
gaslighting me
is
a little bit
similar.
right now, Xanderhal. Like, I really do, because I feel like, I mean, I've been seeing this happen a lot more, and I see the anti-white hatred that keeps rising, and the fact that, again, it's so mainstream and it's okay, and we are still the majority. So I think that when you take into account the fact we are going to become a minority, and if you look at other countries where this has happened,
Okay.
yes, okay, I know that like South Africa and Rhodesia and all this stuff is pointed to, and they were technically, white people were always the minority, but black people did have a grievance against white people there, and the second that they were able to take any kind of control, they did, and like it wasn't good for white people. And think about the grievances that black people here are going to have are far greater than you're going to have over in those countries where they weren't slaves or anything.
Do you think the socio-political position of black people in this country is comparable to that of South Africa?
I think that black people have a fucking grievance. Like, okay, when you talk about, okay, say you want to go for people who have been oppressed, with, like, you know, you got the Holocaust Jews and stuff. Jews have like actually come out of that, and they are you know, they've done very well for themselves. So the grievances that they could possibly have are going to be not quite the same. Whereas black people never really have been able to get out of what has happened. It's gone from generation to generation to generation, and they have been stuck in this. And so that's carried on for sure. But one thing, like, I also think of with slave. What do you think, like, child abuse and stuff was like back during the time of slavery? Do you think that it was okay for parents to, you know, like use a belt or to beat their child? I mean, that was kind of somewhat the norm, wasn't it? Discipline, as far as discipline.
God knows my mom whipped out the belt if I so much as talked back. Okay,
Right.
Trust me, I had plenty a beating as a child, so I can confirm that still happens today.
Right,
So I don't
but
know if that analogy will work for me.
It's a bit more frowned upon. Like, you can't be using, you know, a belt to, like, you can get arrested if you do something like that. If you use an actual tool to discipline your child. Right?
Okay. Yeah, sure. Wait, I want to ask you a question. I don't know if this is related to where we're going, but I guess this is just like the fundamental question I have for you.
Okay.
So right now, in the world, in America right now, there are majority black schools where a few white kids go there, and exactly the little Timmy question happens to them. And that type of behavior comes from, at least so it seems, sociologists seem to agree, seems to come from the segregation of our society on an economic level. Black people in this country are typically relegated to poorer neighborhoods that are typically majority non-white. And so when you have like one or two white kids that are zoned to a school in a black neighborhood, then there's only going to be a couple of white kids and then like a bunch of black kids, right? And when you feel that different, when you stick out that much, you may be the target of bullying, and that's a thing that happens now. So with what I said before, we know that exposure decreases people's racism, basically. When you're exposed to people of a different race, you tend to be less racist. Wouldn't the solution or the policy you should be advocating for, shouldn't it be one of revolution of our systems, either fixing or completely tearing down and recreating of the systems in this country that result in that disparity and that economic segregation, so that we have a more integrated society where, like, your neighbor across the street is Asian, the guy down the street's from Mexico, the guy up the street's from Puerto Rico, your next door neighbor is black. Don't you think that when neighborhoods are far more multicultural, don't you think you're going to have less bullying for this type of thing?
No, I think there's going to be a lot more infighting. And I think because I think that that's just like human nature, that you're going to have those kind of, you're going to be wanting self-preservation, you are going to have infighting, and this is exactly what we're seeing in America in general. We are unable to address
this just isn't borne out in the data.
Literally, are you kidding me? There's so many problems we cannot address because we are constantly infighting over stupid shit. Like, the poor people
have less racial tension and racism when they live together.
Xander,
all right, one sec. Just to
let Brittany talk. Let Brittany talk. Okay.
Otherwise, let's get into 2-minute segments.
Yes, Xander. Okay, so yeah, no, we have as far as like black and white people, poor people, they probably have a lot of economic in common, a lot of economic issues in common, and yet they are completely on the opposite ends. A lot of white people in general are willing. Is there any policy actually that you would be willing to sacrifice economic gains to achieve? When I think about it,
A policy that would sacrifice
Yeah.
economic gains to achieve?
yeah.
I honestly, like I said before, the policies I advocate for are ones that are like a rising tide that raises all ships, right? Like one of the biggest examples that I brought up just on stream recently is a way that black people are kept down, and a policy that would help both black people and white people and people of every race is the current federal criminalization of marijuana. Means that states where dispensaries are allowed to exist and you can sell marijuana legally, unfortunately, as long as it's federally legal, banks will not loan to people who need a loan to start a business, which means that the marijuana industry, marijuana being a drug that black people in this country have been disproportionately policed and arrested and incarcerated for, despite not using it more than white people for a very long time, you would think that like in these states where you have dispensaries and weed being legal, that like the black community in these areas could possibly see some level of recovery because of that. But unfortunately, due to its federal criminalization, you can't get loans. You have to have the capital at your expenditure already to be able to start a dispensary, and you can only operate in cash, and there's just a lot of roadblocks in the way. Just federally legalizing weed and making it so that like anybody could go get a loan to start a dispensary like they could any other business is just, that would literally help everybody and black people. These are the types of policies that I advocate for. None of the policies you're going to see me pushing for are going to be about taking white people out of power and putting black people in their place. That's not what anybody who's sane on the left is advocating for.
No, I wouldn't think that would be anything that you would advocate for, of course. But I'm just saying, like, I'm sure there are policies. I mean, I don't know if technically that was one of them, but I know there are policies that people would be willing to sacrifice some economic gains to achieve. A lot of people are willing to do that when it comes, to immigration. Yeah, I guess you could say that in the short term, immigration is an economic gain for the country, but some people are also going to be pushing the fact that we don't want to become a minority in our own country. When people tell you, oh, okay, well, why don't you just go move to one of these like white countries or whatever? It's kind of, I mean, isn't that like exactly the point? We're being run out of our own country. Jesus, can you hear the dryer? Is it loud?
The way, yeah, I can hear it a little bit, but it's
Okay,
not too.
I might
It's
wanna, like,
barely
go,
in the
turn
background.
it off because hold on a second, maybe not. All right, sorry. All right. I think
Yeah, you said we are being run out of our own country. Nobody's being run out. This is actually, I think now's a good time to tackle this. The idea of replacement. Now, the term replacement necessarily has to be referring to generationally on a generational level, people of a different, I guess, demographic are being born at a faster rate than people of a certain demographic are dying out. That's what replacement rate is.
But I don't care about the replacement thing. That's not my issue. My issue is more about becoming a minority in the country, in our country. That's my.
Yeah, that's not even going to happen in your lifetime. And if you want to prevent the problems that you think. No, we're not. White people are not going to be a minority in our lifetimes.
A minority, like what, in 2050?
No, I don't think that math lines up perfectly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. So the birth rates of millennials in this country and of Zoomers. Well, Zoomers aren't exactly birthing age yet, but if the birth rates of millennials continue with the same track for Zoomers, for Generation Z, then yes, you can make that argument. But right now, at least when I've read about it, the low millennial, just broadly, the low millennial birth rate has more to do with economic issues and just
I
issues
turn
with
this off.
finances.
Hold on one second. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
In the meantime, I want to let you know, folks, we are absolutely thrilled. In less than 10 days or so, Modern Day Debate's first ever in-person conference, DebateCon, is going to be huge. In fact, Xander himself is going to be there, among many others. For example, at the bottom right of your screen, you can see there, Destiny and Infrared are going to debate Biden on trial. That's going to be a juicy one. And so that is linked in the description box, so you can get in-person tickets for that event in Dallas, and the crowdfund is in the description box as well. That way you can watch all the debates live, as some of the debates will be live to the public, and some of them you have to be either a Patreon supporter or throw into the crowdfund for. So with that, we'll jump back into open conversation.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. I have like ADD.
So,
All right,
so what do you mean? What do you mean when you say that white people are being run out of America?
I'm saying that's one of the arguments that you hear when we talk about these things is okay, we'll go move to one of those white countries, which there are not very many left, and every single one is kind of experiencing like mass migration that's happening into their countries, and there's no real place for white people to go anymore. There really isn't.
Wait. What do you mean no place for white
Because
people? Are white people trying to escape the brown people?
For people who might not want to become a minority, people who might not want to experience any kind of racial revenge that could possibly emerge, where do they go? If that was to happen, where are they supposed to go?
Why don't we just not encourage
Let's not have
racism and
racial
fight
revenge.
against it? Yeah, let's not have racial revenge.
I would like that. I would very much like that.
I don't think we're heading in the direction of a race war right now. It doesn't seem like that's the way that we're going. BLM is like an example of this. Granted, like general support for it has gone down since Biden got elected, but like BLM had massive amounts of support among both black, white, Hispanic, so on Americans. Like it seems like we're seeing a massive increase in multiracial cooperation to fight for rights. It doesn't seem like we're having this like do you think like that one, it's like that one image where it's like MLK's ghost in the sky and the two white guys picking cotton and the black guy with the belt whipping them while they're picking the cotton? Like I just don't think that's the future we're heading towards.
Okay, you haven't caught, like, obviously, like, I've gone down these rabbit holes since this whole red pill. I don't think you probably have. Seen a lot of some scary freaking shit. Some of it where you'll see groups of black people like scattered out, telling them to go get every white person you see. I've seen a lot of this anti-white stuff where they are just like literally beating people up for being white. This stuff is kind of scary. Again, we are still in the majority and this is happening. Like, what the fuck is going to happen when we are the minority? Tell me something to ease my fears, and I would love to not have these fucking fears. Like, I would absolutely love it. So please, please tell me something.
If white people are meant to be a minority by 2050, I hope, for one, let's say that does happen.
Okay.
What line of events do you think has to occur for us to reach the point that you're afraid of? Let's work through that first.
Xander. It's already happening.
It's not already happening.
Yes, it is.
It's not.
You're being sheltered from it because it is happening.
I'm not sheltered from it at all.
I think
listen, Brittany, you do know that my most popular video on my entire channel is about how I was alt-right once. You know, I know all these talking points. I've seen all the data. I've heard all the arguments from the alt-right when it comes to like the danger of white people being replaced and becoming a minority. I've heard all of these arguments. I'm very, very aware of the reasoning. It just doesn't hold up to scrutiny. It's just not a realistic outcome that's going to happen. If you want to prevent this future, engaging in tribalism is only going to make the problem worse. What you're advocating for is the very same racial separation that will only cause the problem to get worse. Like you said, humans are naturally afraid of the unknown. We need to make people of other races not the unknown. We don't want white people to be the unknown for black people or Hispanic people or whatever, and we don't want it to be the other way around either. That's only that future that you want is more likely with the policy that you're advocating for.
See, that would be all fine and dandy, and this is again what I talk about when lefties talk about this ideal world we wish we lived in that just doesn't actually exist. But the fact we are constantly teaching so much of this anti-white stuff and all the bad things that white people, I'm still talking, I know you're about to do it, don't do it, all the bad things that white people have done, what do you think is going to do? It's literally going to cause people to hate. I mean, white people hate white people. That's how much this propaganda is freaking working. I was one of those white people that hated white people. So what the fuck?
I love white people. I don't.
I saw your omegle. I have.
That guy was a Nazi who was screaming the N-word. I was screaming over him yelling the N-word. Okay. No, but I guess you're doing the thing. Like, do you think that minorities want to take revenge on white people?
I do. I do. I think that is something. I'm not every single one, obviously, but I do think there is this anti-white hatred that's going on, and I worry about what happens when white people do not have the kind of power that they are able to hold on to right now to stop it, because they are not doing a great job, even with them being the majority.
So Obama was black and he was president. Why didn't why?
It's news to me. God.
So we had a black president. Why didn't we see any of that from him? You know. Why, like, you would think that if there was we had a black president elected, like, I mean, we saw hate crimes from white nationalists and white supremacists go up under Trump. You'd think under Obama you would see like anti-white hate crimes and like black separatist or sorry, not black separatist, but like anti-white hate crimes. You would think they'd go up. Hell, even Biden being in office, you'd think you'd be seeing left-wing anti-white hate crimes go up, right?
You know that Obama was like the first social media president, right? I mean, you might be too young to know that. So.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, Twitter was like, when did Twitter come out? Like 2006?
Well, 2008 is like kind of when social media started to skyrocket in general. I mean, yeah, there was stuff here and there, but it was like MySpace, you know, way before your time, though, chat.
Okay, but what's this have to do with?
I'm saying that. Don't you think that social media also plays a huge role in some of the stuff that we are dealing with in some of the
social media makes it easier for a president to radicalize their base. That's how Trump stoked his fans into doing the Capitol riot with social media. That only helps my argument. The idea that that Obama or Biden could reach their left-wing anti-white.
Do you think Obama used social media
audience?
As Trump did? Come on.
I mean, he could have, but he didn't. It doesn't seem, because the left doesn't want to start a race war, is why.
Obama didn't want to start a race war. Obama was somebody who literally he was one of those, I think I even saw an interview where he was saying he was worried about not being black enough for black people, not being white enough for white people, and he was in that like center where he was trying to please both sides and walk that line. In a way, in this country, I feel like that is like the best line you can actually walk, because I'm a big Obama fan. Sorry to people that that's probably going to piss a lot of people on both sides off, but I'm a big Obama fan. I think he was a really good president. I think he did a really good job, but he was the first social media president, and that there were a lot of problems that arise because of social media that we don't ever think about, because somebody like you who literally grew up in the social media age, that was your world. But for a lot of other people, we had to adjust to this entirely new world where information was coming at you so much faster. Yeah, hate groups were rising. People were able to like get into conspiracies a lot easier. There were people who were going with like-minded views, and you're getting information before you can actually have any facts. And there was a reactionary kind of environment going on. And I think Obama took a lot of heat for some of the things that were actually caused by social media. But I don't think that but I think that like for our country in general, and if you look at the way our social media is going now, we're not even able to, like, right-wingers are literally purged off of every freaking platform you can have. Like every single one. They're not allowed to have even a space online anymore.
Didn't Twitter come out and say that they specifically have to be more lenient when enforcing the rules of their TOS on conservatives, because if they weren't, then there'd be virtually no... It was a few years, or 2 years ago, I think, maybe a year ago, they came out and they said they had to be more easy on conservative politicians and public figures when it came to like upholding their TOS, because if they enacted their TOS as they would anybody else, basically every conservative politician would be banned off of Twitter. So they have to like kind of play it easy there. They've admitted they had to do that. They gave Trump so many chances. You
should meet the new CEO. I literally got banned off of Twitter for following somebody like on the right. That I'm not even kidding. I didn't break any TOS. Somebody I was following had a Twitter space, and everybody that was in that Twitter space got banned, suspended completely. No warning, no nothing, just banned.
What was the Twitter space about?
It was a Fuentes Twitter space that he had, and everybody in that. But no, who cares? Like, why should the people that are just listening in a Twitter space or following somebody get banned? In what world is that okay?
I mean, Twitter makes the rules, I guess. Don't get me wrong; these platforms practically are not very good at upholding their TOS, and you've probably seen me complain about that plenty on Twitter. But I mean, I don't. Nick Fuentes is a public figure who's a neo-Nazi and is banned off of Twitter. It's not exactly surprising that people hanging out in like a fan club group. Do you disagree with that? Do you think Nick Fuentes isn't a Nazi?
No, I don't think he's a Nazi. I don't think he's a Nazi. Um, I think he has maybe some controversial views, but I don't think he's a Nazi. And I think like we throw that term around quite loosely. But I don't even think like Nazis are even actually a real thing anymore. So, but yeah, no, I just think that the way we're not even able to live in the same internet spaces where you're not even going to have any kind of like human contact with somebody. You're not going to be able, I mean, it would be literally the safest place to be somewhere. And we can't even be in these same internet spaces. So, yeah, we're supposed to be able to be in the same country. I don't know.
What percentage of the left do you think is anti-white?
I don't know, Xander. I don't know, but I'm sure there's quite a bit. I think it's
Okay.
not. I don't know if they even recognize that they are anti-white. I think that they have like this anti-white guilt. I literally had it myself, and I went through like the worst cognitive dissonance going through this whole red pill process. So I know what it feels like where was going through this, and I felt like some of the thoughts I was having were fucking with me a bit, and I didn't want to have those thoughts because I know that this is where my black pill came in too, because there was a lot of problems I was recognizing that there were no solutions to, and that freaked me out as well. And yeah, so I've been a little bit more red to black pilled, if anything. But I think that the fact the propaganda is so strong that so many white people are so anti-white is not a good sign.
I I hate to say it, but I think you've red pilled yourself into supporting anti-whiteness.
Wait, what?
I know it sounds strange, but
Let's hear
like
it.
the groups you've said that you agree with here are explicitly, like, for example, the Hoteps, a group of people that
I don't know
you
who
said are
these
just
are.
looking out. You said they were the black separatists, black nationalists, etc. They're part of that umbrella. Those are the groups that I see who at least claim to be on the left that put out the most virulent anti-white, like anti-white racism and anti-white hatred, and they're allying with the types like America First, Nick Fuentes, the Proud Boys, all of that, and they're very anti-white. The only reason these groups are coming together is because they both want segregation, and your virtue signaling support for this type of initiative. And it's ironic because these are the types of people where I'm seeing all the, like, every bit of anti-white rhetoric I see from the left are people enabling and supporting these like black separatists, black nationalists, or Hotep types, and you're signaling support for those people who are the types I've heard the most anti-white racism from on the left.
But I almost would rather them be honest about it, if anything, and like, no, okay, they don't, not we, sorry, excuse me, but they don't want to live amongst white people, and for white people, they shouldn't have to live amongst people that they don't like either. If I feel like that choice should be allowed in this country, and it doesn't seem like it is. We are had this like forced integration that's happening, and what again, if we're having all of this propaganda that's being pushed, what results do you think that's going to cause if that's the case? You're pushing people to be around people that they don't like or that they have been like trained to not like, and telling them, okay, now you have to be in a company with them, you have to be in a school with them, you have to be in this community with them, and deal with it. What do you think that's going to do?
We gotta see if like anti-white hate crimes go up. I guess it seems like the country's just getting more and more progressive as it gets
Because
more
you're
and
being
more diverse.
sheltered.
How am I? I'm not sheltered. I live in Palm Springs. It's like it's like an hour drive from the border to Mexico. You know, like you'd think that there'd be. Like I've gone to LA and shit. I've seen a good amount of stuff. Like I don't know why the "you're sheltered" thing is an argument from you. I've used data to back up what I've said. The data from sociologists, criminologists, everything seems to demonstrate that exposure reduces the amount of racial animosity and racism that somebody has, right? And you're using, well, I have common sense, you're sheltered, that's my argument.
I think.
Do you understand where the disconnect is
Well,
here?
I think that what I mean by being sheltered is a lot of the people in these communities are, I would say, terminally online. I'm probably one of those as well. But when you have, like I said earlier, that all these right wingers are being pushed off of the internet completely, it's a lot easier for left-wingers to get their messages out than it is for right-wingers. Like, left-wingers can kind of push whatever freaking message they want on any platform they want, whenever they want, wherever they want. Right-wingers are not able to do that. They are kicked off of everything, so they are not able to counter any of this stuff. They can't even talk about half of these things because it's against TOS.
I got false striked by YouTube twice in a row because I talked about vaccines.
Yeah,
Any
I got
YouTuber,
one of those too.
anyone who talks about COVID or anything that's a controversial topic at all might get the strike on YouTube or Twitch or whatever. Because it's an algorithm, and all these platforms care about is maximizing their revenue. And small creators that have no accountability talking about these topics is a threat for YouTube's bottom line. They aren't pushing an ideology. YouTube doesn't want to push an anti-white. You'd think YouTube would be banning every conservative right-wing creator on their platform, and Twitch would be doing the same if that was their goal. They're not pushing for some anti-white, anti-American, anti-whatever narrative, okay? Like, I'm actually curious. This is a question that I have. What about whiteness? Is it a question
you have or your chat has?
I have it.
Okay.
What about whiteness to you is worth preserving? Why do you want to preserve whiteness?
This is not like my question, because I don't really, it's not about it for me. Like, I'm not somebody who is like, oh, I'm trying to like save the white race or anything like that. I honestly do not care. That's not what this is for me. Like, I have very different goals than a lot of the white nationalists have. So that might be their goal. For me, I just do not want to become a minority in this country. I do worry about a racial revenge. I don't like the anti-white hate. I think that for me, being white is more of a visual thing. Like, if somebody was going after somebody, I'm still talking. If somebody was going after somebody for being white, they're not going to sit there and ask them, like, you know, they're 23andMe or how white are you or this or that. They are going to see somebody who is, you know, blonde, blue-eyed, and they are going to be not happy if they are anti-white. So that's my issue. I don't, again, white nationalists have a very different reasoning, might have similar goals, but completely different reasoning for it. And again, I don't have any hate for anybody. I really, really, really wish it wasn't like this. I hate that it's like this, but there are so many uncomfortable truths that I have had to like face that I didn't like it, but they are the reality. And it sucks that it's the reality, but it is the reality. And what really annoys me is the fact that you can't talk about this because then you are like lambasted this horrible, horrible person just by pointing out uncomfortable truths. Why is that okay?
I don't think you're calling out when you say things like I'm just pointing out uncomfortable truths, that comes off as a dog whistle. That's something that like right-wingers for a long time will have used as a defense against any criticism. Is I'm just asking questions. I'm just telling the brutal, honest truth. I'm just telling it how it is, the uncomfortable truth. Like it just comes off as a little sussy to me. But I guess I'm sorry. My chat said something funny.
Stop looking at your chat. See, I don't have a chat that I'm be able to look at, so you can't look at your.
They're just spamming emotes and jokes. Okay, they're not backing me up or anything. They never back me up.
I got a spy in there that's seeing if you're gonna be stealing notes.
They're just spamming the emote of Hank Schrader from Breaking Bad doing the sus face. That's what they're doing right now. I guess. So you believe that there is an overwhelming, or at least a growing, animosity towards white people in our society. You believe that immigration is going to result in more non-white people coming to this country, learning, I guess, how bad white people are, and then they're going to want to do a race war.
I think with how much we are talking and how much we are pushing so much of the anti-white hatred, that yes, that when the time comes, white people are the minority. And with how much, I mean, we are trying to right a lot of the wrongs that happened in the past. And like, it seems like almost like white people are going to be having to get punished for the sins of the past. They're getting they really are being punished for the sins of the past. Whereas black people, they might be able to get away with a little bit more. Like they're filming something, they might do something illegal, but if they do something, they provoke a cop and something happens, then they're able to get out of it because it's all about public opinion and they're pushing a lot of this stuff. And I think MLK was somebody who was also talking about that, how they would kind of try to provoke incidents that would happen. Don't you dare! would provoke things to show people how bad some of the police were, and to get a reaction from the public. It's all about public opinion, and with social media, it makes it a lot easier for them to do. But I think for white people, there's no sympathy for any white person for anything. They get no wiggle room for anything. One little screw up and like the mob is coming for them. And I don't know. I think that's just it's just kind of little things like that keep building up and happening. Should worry you. Do you ever plan on having kids?
Probably not. I think I'll probably adopt a kid
a black
when
baby.
when I'm at a certain point where I've got like the financial means and everything. I'll probably adopt a kid that already needs a home. I think that like there's a lot of kids out there in the foster system who are ending up in really shitty situations. A really close friend of mine was in one of those situations, and she was sexually assaulted by one of her foster parents. And I just hope that if I have the money for it one day, if I'm going to have kids, I can just provide a good home and upbringing and a financial stable living situation for a child who already needs a place to be, you know?
Yeah.
I guess that's my goal, but I have a question.
I got an answer.
When you say white people will be a minority in this country, what do you mean by that? What does minority mean?
Okay, I know that if you were to, they'd still not be a minority because you have a lot of different other groups. But I feel like with how much people all have a grievance against white people, that there is like, it wouldn't matter if, you have a certain amount of Mexicans or black people or this or that. It's like they all have a grievance against white people. Everybody hates whitey. And so I think that is when white people are going to be the minority, when you combine the rest of them.
So when we use minority to refer to like black people or Hispanic people or any non-white like racial group or ethnic group in this country, we're not, the word minority isn't referring to them being like the number being low.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So you're arguing that white people will become a minority in the same sense that non-white people in this country are, not out of number, but in power and wealth.
It's a little bit of both. A little bit of both, but yeah, like I think that it's just not going to be good for white people in general. Like,
wait. So you think?
Okay.
Do you think your life is going to be affected by this? I'm curious.
Do I think my life is going to be affected by this?
Yeah.
Mine personally, I don't know if mine personally is. I worry about my sons. I worry about my son's life.
Well, I think your son will probably be okay.
Why?
I don't think the race war is coming. I'm going to be honest. If anything, if there's going to be any type of race war or massive violent racially motivated outbreak, it's way more likely going to be like white right-wingers going against like a multiracial protest of black, Hispanic, and white people's way more likely.
Okay,
I mean, that seems like it's way close. Okay. We just like following the Capitol riot, Christchurch shooting. I mean, we can even look at the terrorism rate, the politically motivated rates for terror, it just across the world and in this country. It's overwhelmingly right wing. Virtually no.
Hold on a second.
Sure. I think actually I might bring this up for when she gets back. It just might be worth referencing.
We will keep that. Put a pin in it. I promise we'll come right back to it, Xander. I've got to let you know, folks, Xander is one of the people who will be at this conference coming up. It is going to be juicy, and that is linked in the description, as that's in Dallas, Texas, January 15th and 16th. We'll jump back into it.
Okay.
It like every bit of data. I mean, I could DM you on Discord if you want to see some of it, but it looks like left-wing political violence has been... It didn't really exist much on any serious scale to begin with in this country, but just it's gone down. The tiny bit that existed has gone down over the decades, while right-wing violence has been on an upward trend. It just doesn't seem like, if we look at the current trends, the direction this country is heading in, it seems like those that are advocating for more progressive policy and more equality are the same that are trying to fight against the concept of racism. I mean, you even listed, when you talked about critical race theory, the main idea behind it is that in reality, the conceptions we have of race are totally bunk. They were invented in order to help support racism. The idea that the people you're claiming are anti-white are pushing is to abolish the idea of race. There's not supposed to be a concept concept of white and black and Hispanic,
for
etc.
fuck's
Like, are you? Do you believe that these people are not in favor of racial abolition?
Wait, are you saying? Wait, hold on a second.
The idea purported by most of the types that support critical race theory, actual critical race theory, not when Republicans claim that teaching about Martin Luther King is critical race theory in schools. Actual critical race theory, most that purport it are racial abolitionists. They believe the social construct of race is one that only results in more racial animus between us, and they want to abolish it.
You're saying that white? No, you're not saying white people are doing that.
Plenty of white people support.
Like white lefties. Okay. But even say that you're right about white people are going to be the ones that are going to go do all these horrible things and blah blah. It's still an argument against being a multiracial society, because it's still an argument that there is a lot of tensions that are going to happen. Shouldn't we want to protect all these groups as well from each other in general?
I think you've been.
What have I been?
I genuinely, I don't think you're a Nazi. I imagine my chat. Okay, hold on, wait. I think my chat's gonna get really mad when I say this. I don't think you're a Nazi. I think you are extremely into the white moderate pill. I think is what's happened. I don't want to gish gallop for too much, but I'd like to read a quote from MLK's letter from Birmingham jail, because I think this quote perfectly applies to what you're saying here.
Okay.
Let me take a nice drink of water first. Perfect H2O. All right, this is from Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail. I must make two honest confessions to you, my Christian and Jewish brothers. First, I must confess that over the past few years, I've become gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I've almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's greatest stumbling block is his stride towards freedom is not the white citizens' counselor, the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is much more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. There's more to the quote, and I think as it goes on, it applies even more. But I think I feel like you've white moderate pilled yourself. Like the people who are on the more radically progressive side that are advocating for just a broader dissolution of the entire system that has informed our current conceptions of race, you're claiming those are the people that want to start a race war. It's the same kind of narrative from the types that push back against MLK during the civil rights movement. It's the same type of white moderate hesitancy.
Can you tell me some benefits of having a multiracial society?
I don't think the onus is on me to say there are benefits. I think the onus is on you to tell me the negatives.
You're the one who wants it, though.
I think it's going to happen regardless. I'm just not against it. I haven't heard any arguments against it. It's natural. I don't know what, you're the one making the argument we need to stop it. The onus is on you.
I feel like I have made a lot of arguments on why it's bad.
I wouldn't agree, but I guess I could list some things: culture, food, stories, getting to meet new people, new friends. I've got plenty of friends that are not white that I'd hate to have never met.
Yeah, because there's so many of them here. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I met most of them on the internet, but
I'm sorry.
Okay, I guess we can go, because I have a list of things we went through, and I guess we'll go to the last thing. Nick J. Fuentes. I don't want to linger on this too much because we're talking about another person, and I don't like debating about other people. But you said that you don't think he's a Nazi.
Sure.
I do think he's a Nazi.
Okay.
Why do you say that?
I don't think that Nazis are even a thing anymore.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, he might be I think he's isn't he a paleocon or
Well, he's a white supremacist.
Define white supremacist.
He believes that black people are inherently inferior to white people.
I don't know.
He also thinks that the age of consent is a feminist construct.
Okay,
that ought to be abolished.
I mean, I could talk to Mr. Girl about that one, all right?
Oh, yeah. Okay, all right. I mean, Do you believe the Holocaust happened and
Yes.
that 6 million Jews? Okay, all right, just checking in. Well, I mean, do you got any memes for me?
Do I have any memes for you?
I mean, like any questions, any talking points, any points you want me to
I wrote some
like?
things down. Hold on, let me see if I have gone through some of them. Okay. I'm kind of glad we didn't really get into the economic factor because I don't think it really actually matters that much for what I'm pushing. I mean, there are economic issues that I do have as well. It's not just this. This wasn't like the sole reason I am against immigration. But one thing that actually somebody mentioned to me recently was, with the birth rates and stuff. And it didn't even click to me because I do believe that global warming and climate change, I believe all that stuff. But I do realize that there have been a lot of those advocates who are pushing to not have kids because of overpopulation. That kind of shit worries me a little bit as well. Like, why are they pushing to not have children when we have such low birth rates? I'm actually asking them.
If you want to look at a place that's having issues with lower birth rates, I mean, America is certainly not one of them. We have a fairly decent replacement rate.
America doesn't have low birth rates?
America does not seem to have a problem at the moment.
Absolutely, we do.
Well, right now millennials aren't having kids because of the current economy and the difficulty for them to build wealth and get a place. But like outside of that, it seems like our replacement rate just broadly in this country is not nearly as bad as it could be.
Yeah,
if you want to look at a country, a matter of fact, this actually supports my point. Japan, very, very, very racist country. Very, very racist. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Okay. Japan is a very, very racist. They sided with Hitler in World War II. It's a very racist country. They are not a big fan of black people.
Let's bring them on over.
Yeah, very xenophobic country, and because of this, they take in like no immigration. They've got very tight immigration. Their birth rates are so low. I think more people are committing suicide. Like I think their suicide rates are like starting to catch up with the birth rates in Japan right now, or something like that. Very, very, very bad shit. That's not the future I want to see for America. Ironically enough, that's an example of a country that's doing exactly what you're advocating for, and they're not exactly having the best time. They're not doing well there. But
I'm not familiar with Japan and
I highly recommend looking into it.
I will. Absolutely. If you want to send me something too, I'll look at that. No problem. Like I said, I'm open to being unred pilled. I would love to be unred pilled. This has been nothing but it's not been good for me. I mean, I've gotten a lot of shit because of all these views. I didn't want to have these views. But
the red pill is just acknowledging issues that exist, blaming it on the wrong groups, and then advocating for the wrong solutions. That's all the red pill is.
It cut out that first part. Say that again.
All the red pill is acknowledging the same issues, blaming it on the wrong groups, then purporting the wrong possible solutions. That's more or less my experience of the red pill.
Perhaps.
All right, and I was right wing. Okay, I believe some shit. Okay, that is what the red pill was to me.
What made you get blue pilled then?
Hearing that the arguments these right-wingers were making weren't true. Whenever someone made a lot of arguments that I've heard on the right will point out actual issues in our society. The arguments that convinced me when I was younger were real issues in our society, whether it be the anti-feminist content that pointed out that like men have disproportionately higher suicide rates than women, or content that made claims like black people commit more crime than white people for socioeconomically related reasons. When I heard arguments like this, there was no counter out there for me to find. So when I stumbled across content that was actually able to present data that debunked those currently held positions, I got pulled out of it. And now my job is to research all of these topics so that I can debate people on it and just sort of strengthen my positions from there.
Was there one particular issue that got you into the alt-right, and then one particular issue that maybe got you out of it?
Ironically enough, pretty similar to what you're saying. I did actually feel like white men mostly were under attack in this country, and it just seems like as I've gotten older, it just hasn't been borne out in reality. I'm doing just fine. Seems like white men in this country are doing just fine, and it was just sort of a misguided perspective. If you want to make the argument that people are being oppressed in this country and that white people are facing issues, if anything, it's capitalism causing those problems, not some cabal of people pushing anti-whiteness, or I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you guys want to go into the Q&A. We can.
We're good to go.
No.
Let's jump into it.
All right.
Want to let you know, folks, both of our guests are linked in the description, so if you want to hear more, you certainly can, and that includes if you're listening via the podcast, as we put our guest links in the description box for the podcast as well. But let's jump right into it. First question, probably certain, says, Jim Crow and slavery is not CRT.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems more of like a statement than a question.
Right, we do read statements.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
I'm just not exactly sure who it
Okay.
Next up, Keith X says, Brittany, why does being a minority scare you? Because of how you're treated? You're perpetuating a form of separation. Why not focus on treating minorities better? Then you wouldn't have to worry which side you're on.
No, I think that we should do both. I think we should treat people a lot better as well. But I do think it's no secret that minorities, no matter what you are, they're not treated well. They're going to be treated like second-class citizens. But the difference here is the history. The minorities have a history where they've been like really fucked over, and it's not good. So a lot of people are trying to right the wrongs. But when white people become the minority, there's not going to be that same sympathy for white people that there is for other minorities who have suffered. So I think it's going to be more of like, okay, you kind of have this coming, you deserve it, fuck you. Whereas we are not doing that to minorities now. So I do worry about it. I worry about like paying for sins of the past, whatever those might be. And I think that a lot of people should. And I think that people that are pushing some of this anti-white stuff, especially if they are white, are not realizing that this is going to backfire. They're not going to know if you're the good white person or the bad white person if it's purely a racial issue. If they're coming for white people, they're not going to stop and say, hey, are you a lefty white person or are you a fucking Nazi white person? They're going to be going for you for your skin color.
Sam Harris's Bulldog says, I know it's off topic, but I would die for an archaeological evidences for the Book of Mormon debate on this channel. Please make it happen, James. Thanks for that. I'll keep that in mind. Long Nights YouTube and says, amazing how much quote-unquote certain white people are afraid of the people of this country. Actually learning about the history of this country, it's whitewashed.
True.
I think that's for you, Brittany.
Okay, wait, say it again? Sorry.
They said amazing how much certain white people are afraid of the people of this country while actually learning about the history of this country. It's whitewashed.
Certain white people are afraid of the people of this country, and it's whitewashed?
I think they're saying, like, there's a contrast where, especially, they're saying if you read the history of the United States, it's especially surprising, to put it charitably. They're saying it's surprising that some white people are afraid of themselves getting attacked.
Yeah. I don't know why it's surprising, though. I feel like...
Well, I think they're trying to imply that the history of the U.S. has, in actuality, been the reverse. Namely, they're trying to suggest that the history would suggest that it's minorities, if anybody, that should be.
Which I'm worried about us becoming a minority. So.
This one from Mr. Monster says, anti-white hate is an illusion.
Ugh,
I don't think that, actually. I actually disagree with that. I think there is an ironic anti-white hate, but I think it's coming from the black separatist types that claim to be on the left but are literally allying with types like the Proud Boys. I think that at the end of the day, any racial segregationist policy is only going to result in hurting both groups that are affected by it. I don't think that racial segregation helps society at all.
Amazing. This one coming in from Sunflower says, X, aka Xander, adult liberals had the exact same reaction as the sobbing fourth grader when Trump got elected. Colleges implemented new programs to aid the trauma.
I don't know what that is referring to. I became a right-winger when Trump got elected. The Trump getting elected led to me moving more to the right, so I don't know what that's for.
I think what they're trying to say is, I think it went back to when you had mentioned the fourth grade girl who was afraid that when Obama became president that there was going to be like persecution and that Obama would be Hitler or something to that effect. They're saying when Trump became president, they're saying that people were saying this is, Hitler, and that there were new programs to aid the trauma at colleges.
Well, yeah, he got me, I guess, or they got me. That is true, I imagine. Maybe. Probably happened.
This one from Elusive Viper says the second largest and largest growing demographic isn't blacks, it's Latinos.
Mm-hmm.
Why all of this focus on what will still be the third largest racial group?
Well, for me, it's not like technically about like blacks or anything like that. It's just, again, the anti-white stuff that we are pushing on people. I mean, like I said earlier, even white people are hating white people. Everybody has a grievance against white people. So us just becoming a minority really worries me. So it's not about, I know that, yeah, like blacks are not going to be the majority anytime soon. Like that's kind of obvious. But the fact that we would become the minority is more my concern.
This one coming in from Chess119 says debate title. Let's see. Okay. Oh, not reading that. Rashad Abdul Salam says, Xander, if you're pro-integration, then do you disagree with blacks who want majority black neighborhoods with black schools, black banks, and stores, etc.? If not, why can't whites openly desire the same?
Yeah, no, I don't believe in that. No, I don't believe in, like, black-only neighborhoods and black majority schools and all that. No, I'm not in favor of that, and I don't think white people should be in favor of it either. I think that full-on integration is the way that we defeat racism. It seems like it's borne out in the data, and that's what I'm following.
Chris Gammon says, Brittany, if you convince everyone to treat racial minorities the way you want to be treated, then as a minority, you would be treated well. Do you disagree, and why?
I wish it was like that. I really, really do wish it was like that. It would make everything a lot easier. But again, this is one of those like fantasy worlds where, okay, we want something to be a certain way, but I think that the damage is kind of almost already done. No matter if we all changed our tune, if we all did all this crazy, like amazing stuff, I don't think it would matter. I think we would still deal with some of this racial revenge that's going to happen. And I really do think it's going to happen.
You got it, Mr. White Male says, anti-white stats don't go up because they don't get classified as hate crimes. I think they're saying they don't go up, especially during, I think this came in when people, when they talked about when Trump got into office.
Yeah, that's just not true. If you throw a rock at someone's head and scream, fuck you, whitey, I'm pretty sure that's a hate crime. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe crimes against white people for their race aren't considered hate crimes in this country. I doubt it, though.
This one from Snake Was Right said, America is the greatest country on earth and the most multi-ethnic. Anyone can live together. It's wokesters who can't mix with American culture.
Oh. Well, they were right in the first half. America is the greatest, most multi-ethnic country ever. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think the wokesters, that's a new one.
Are you a wokester, Xander?
I think this person thinks I am, and they invented the term as far as I can tell, so I guess so, if they invented it. I don't seem to agree. I think I do a pretty good job of integrating into society.
Okay.
Juicy. This one coming in from Forward Tribe says, what do you think of the Dalai Lama, and what about when he says Europe should be for Europeans?
Who's that for?
I would think
Probably
it's
for me.
Xander.
I don't know enough about the Dalai Lama to confirm or deny whether or not that's an actual quote, but who cares?
Juicy. This one coming in from Kwani Upstate says, if she isn't Native American, does she think her ancestors shouldn't have come here? Will she leave the U.S. if her ancestors came here?
Okay, this is fun. So yeah, I get this whole Native American thing, and yeah, sure, if everybody wants to leave that's not Native American, let's do that. It's called find a different country, and we can go find our own white country, we can all find our own black country, we can all find our own Mexican country, we can all do that. Let's go do that. We'll just all have our own countries.
Would you go move to the white country if there was like an all-white sort of like ethno-state started up?
I'm not sure that they would take me.
Kwani Upstate strikes again, says the U.S. is and always has been a melting pot, so more babies who grow up American is a good thing.
True. That's why we need to go to war with and annex Canada. We need to take all of the UK. America needs to conquer every single country, the entire world, and everybody needs to become American, okay?
God.
We're gonna rename Earth to America.
I do actually think that the entire world should just speak English. Like, I would be totally down for that. So
It'd be convenient, but I think actually, ironically enough, a lot of the world right now speaks English, and a lot of countries, like in Europe especially, even if they aren't like English-speaking countries, typically like English is taught as a second class. I think the same is done in like Japan and a lot of countries in Asia and whatnot, Central Europe. I think like English is like a required language to learn for a lot of those countries.
This one coming in from Chris Gammon says, for Brittany, what precise skin tones do you advocate for being barred from entering the country?
I mean, come on. It's not about, like, again, I don't have any hate for anybody. I, like, really, really wish it wasn't like this. I don't like that it's like this. I would be happy in a multicultural, multiracial society if it worked. It just doesn't. So it's not like I'm wanting it to be this way. I really don't. So I can't. I just want to close the borders. That's
This one coming in from Nugget Man says, do they say not non-white debating white replacement? What the? I'm confused by that, Nugget Man. You got to clear up. Pivot Cyroy says, not sure if it was asked already, but Brittany, why don't you want to be a minority in your country? Are they treated badly or something?
Yeah, of course. Minorities are always treated badly. Well, nobody should want to become a minority.
Wait, aren't you, even you brought up the South? Sorry, I don't want to derail from the question, the Q&A too much, but I'll make it quick. Ironically enough, despite the violence that has happened in the countryside in South Africa, despite being a proportionally number-wise a minority group in that country, white people still currently hold the vast majority of wealth and power in South Africa.
Yes, I don't know about what kind of wealth they hold and stuff, but I do know that they were able to hold on to a lot of power because they were suppressing media. They were doing a lot of stuff where they were not able to kind of get any access, and that was kind of holding it under control. Once it happened, it did not do well for white people. They were taking their land. There were a lot of killings going on. There was all kinds of crazy shit that was happening. There was a lot of revenge, and I don't want that to happen here.
Well, South Africa went from an apartheid state to not through like a revolutionary action like a couple decades ago. Okay. Obviously, like there was violence we fought a war over ending slavery, and that's more or less the equivalent that was happening
over
there.
They weren't slaves though.
Not slaves, but there was a highly, highly racist society in which black people were considered lesser than white people. It's somewhat comparable to a modern day civil war, you could make the argument. The closest comparison I think we have at the moment, I think the comparison when it comes to white people still being a minority there numbers-wise and yet still holding power is a good one, because you're making the argument that as white people become a minority numbers-wise, that they'll become a minority power and wealth-wise. And it doesn't seem like that's borne out in reality, even when black people in a country who have recently been living under an apartheid state and had a violent revolution to get out of it, even then white people in that country still hold the vast majority of wealth and power.
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure if that's true or not, but I do know that it just wasn't a good scenario when that happened, and it happened twice, I guess, in history, and it was not good, and I just don't want to see that happening here.
Yeah, I don't think that modern day black people are going to react in even close to the same way as like in America, I should say, than the black people in South Africa that lived in an apartheid state and did a violent revolution.
Okay.
I just doesn't seem like that same thing's going to happen here in America.
I think it might be worse here, but okay.
This one coming in from Mr. Monster says, great point, thank you. I don't know what that was referring to, but Tyrone Ross, they say, this is Tyrone Ross saying, Brittany gives a home to hundreds of hate-filled people, but since it's against other races, Brittany doesn't care. How disgusting. We'll give you a chance to defend yourself as well as these alleged hate-filled people, Brittany.
Who was that from?
Tyrone Ross.
Tyrone Ross. And repeat it again?
He said, Brittany gives a home to hundreds of hate-filled people, but since it's against other races, Brittany doesn't care. How disgusting.
I give a home to pretty much anyone that wants it. Our channel, yeah, it has become very right wing. Not a lot of places are platforming right wingers, so they are going to obviously migrate to somewhere where they are being platformed. It wasn't my intention to have a far right channel. It just happened because we were allowing them to speak, and we have a free speech absolutist kind of attitude over on our channel. But it's not like I'm trying to push anybody else out or not have certain voices. I would have black nationalists on as well. I would have anybody that wants to have debates on our channel. So that's not what I'm trying to do.
You got it. This one coming in from LTD9392 says, if you oppose Native Americans being replaced by whites, but you're okay with whites being replaced, you're a hypocrite. You must be consistent with your outrage and recognize that all population replacement is wrong.
I don't agree. I don't agree that any population replacement is wrong as long as there's not active violence and policy meant to displace people from their homes and commit violence on them is being enacted. I don't think that when people say like replacement, it always feels like or white people becoming minority, they talk about it like there's going to be an actual, I mean, Brittany believes this, there's going to be like an actual race war, and there's going to be like marching groups of minorities going down the street, knocking on doors, looking for white people, you know? It doesn't seem like that's going to happen.
This one coming in from Rashad Abdul Salam says, Xander, if pro-integration, shouldn't the government institute 1950s style forced integration via National Guard when any race reaches over 50% somewhere? Why not?
Why would I want the government to enact a home military initiative in order to redistribute the population? Why would I advocate for that? I don't want the cops to come to my, or like, I don't want the National Guard or whatever to come to my door and be like, or the Coast Guard or something to be like, hey, you're a white person and you're in this neighborhood that we've designated to be a black neighborhood. Not in favor. You're going to have to move. I don't want that to happen.
This one coming in
I'm
from
not in favor of that.
Black Sultan says, is Brittany aware of the fact that white people are the minority of the globe or the planet, and they still rule the modern world?
Yeah, we are the minority of the globe. Yeah, that freaking freaks me out a little bit too. I don't want to go into any of that other stuff though, because I'm still, I'm just going to say that. I'm aware.
This one coming in from Memo Lee says, there is, quote, anti-black and, quote, anti-Hispanics and, quote, anti-Muslims, etc. narrative that's been pushed on a daily basis. Why whites feel so attacked when it happens to them?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Was that to me?
Yeah, I think they're saying, so there is this anti-black and anti-white and anti-Hispanic and anti-Muslim narrative that's been pushed on a daily basis. Then they're saying, why do whites feel so attacked when it happens to them? I'm pretty confused.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think anybody should feel attacked when they are being attacked, and it's just kind of the way it's going to go.
This one coming in from Sunflower says, Xander, the Evergreen College fiasco is a real-world example of Brittany's concerns. Do you expect more or less of this type of thing as diversity increases? So Evergreen College, reminder folks, that's where Brett Weinstein basically, well, I'll let you tell it, Xander, if you remember it better than I do.
I don't remember much about that situation, but I think situations like that are probably going to decrease as society gets more and more progressive and more multicultural, and there's like more non-white people generally. It just seems like, as like I said before, the data is borne out. Exposure tends to result in less racism, less violence based on race. And I think as our society gets more multi-ethnic, multi-racial, multicultural, whatever, I think that's going to start to slow down. And we're getting more progressive and anti-racist as this happens too. So, yeah.
You got it. And in particular, I think that was the story of I think it was when the students, do I remember right, that they wanted white people to take the day off. They didn't want them to come to campus.
Something like that, yeah.
But
some like white sit out or something, I don't know.
This one coming in from Nugget Man says, I meant maybe you should actually have a white person advocating for white people.
Well,
half Jewish. He's mad about that.
yeah, I don't know about that one.
Xander is.
It's to me. It's to me.
I think it's to both of us. Yeah.
Are you not white?
I'm Italian, and I guess to many people it doesn't count. When it comes to these types of people, what is and isn't white is literally will never be agreed upon. So there's also there's that as well. Like none of these Nazi types agree on who is and who isn't white.
Yeah, that's why it's more of like a visual thing to me in general. Like, that's why I said earlier, you know, if there's some kind of racial revenge, they're not going to sit there and ask for your 23andMe. They're going to see a blonde hair, blue-eyed girl, and I'm going to be white to them, and that's what I worry about. So I might have different reasonings than the white nationalists might have, but similar goals.
This one coming in from Andrew. Go ahead, Xander. I don't want to cut you off.
Oh, sorry. Well, I'm 22 now in 2022. Or yeah, I'm 22 in 2022. How fitting is that? Nobody in my family's lived past 60 in several generations. So hopefully, when the anti-white hate mobs come rolling down the street, I'll probably have kicked the bucket from vaping by then.
No, it'll be here before that.
Coming in from Do Appreciate It, Andrew Kroll says, I have a novel idea, treating people like people. And Pivot Cyroy says, follow up to my last question, if minorities are treated badly, why not treat them better so there is no reason for hate and retaliation? So I think they're saying, Brittany, why not treat minorities better now? And that way, when minorities do become the numerical majority, then there won't be this alleged incoming vengeance. They say treat the source, not the symptoms, right?
No, I agree. We should do both. We should be treating minorities a lot better, and I'm all for that. I don't think we should be treating anybody bad. I want everybody to be treated well, but I still don't think that's going to solve the problem. I think that's still, like, the damage is done, and it's going to happen regardless of how we treat anybody at this point.
So if it's going to happen, if you think that so do you believe that this race war is happening no matter what?
I think that there will be a racial revenge at some point. I do.
Okay, so you think it's certain?
Yeah.
Okay.
This one coming in from Do Appreciate Your Question. Nation of No One says, no question, just wanted to support. Thanks for your support, Nation of No One. And Marv the Martian says, racial segregation only breeds more racism, creating an us versus them mentality, resulting in power and wealth segregation. Is this Brittany's utopia?
I'm sorry, you're going to have to say that one more time. So sorry.
No problem. They say, racial segregation only breeds more racism, creating an us versus them mentality and resulting in power and wealth segregation as well. Is this Brittany's utopia?
Not sure how it would create more problems if we were segregated. I'm not sure I don't think that would create more problems. I mean, I could see, like, even before I was, like, red-pilled, I was kind of more for a segregation in a way, like, if it was more like left versus right, like, you know, have the lefties in one place and the righties in one place, and maybe do like a European Union kind of thing where each state is its own country, and maybe the federal government's just for like military. But as I've been getting a little bit more red-pilled, I don't even know if that would work completely. So, yeah.
You got it. And this one coming in from Research says, South Africa did not have a violent revolution, Xanderhal. Please learn about history before saying blatantly false things about it.
Sure, there wasn't like a traditional revolution, but there was a pretty violent push for the liberation of black people in that country. I know a good amount about apartheid in South Africa.
This one coming in from Anarchy Last Name says, Brittany, you have never been a leftist. At the beginning of this debate, you talked about how you wanted to get straight white men out of power, which means you have always been essentializing based off of race.
No, I think that's a pretty big left-wing position, actually, and I think that was a lot of propaganda that was pushed, and that was the white guilt that happened. So I don't think that's true at all. I definitely was a lefty, and a lot of people that know me throughout this whole thing would be able to tell you that I was definitely lefty. If you go through all my old stuff, you would see I was definitely far. Well, I mean, maybe Twitch sphere wasn't, but I voted for Bernie in 16. I voted for Buttigieg in the primary in 20. But yeah, I was definitely lefty. When I started to talk about some of these views I was having, I wasn't. I was kind of just like expressing them because they were freaking me out a little bit, and I was hoping maybe somebody can kind of talk me off the ledge. And instead, I got attacked. I was like ostracized. People started freaking out on me, and all that did was kind of push me further into the arms of right wingers. Sorry.
I think that and I don't want to take any like low blows or anything here towards your community, but I think there's a tendency among and I think that there are people who've done this well, and there are people who've done it poorly. When it comes to a platform, it's all about giving somebody a voice, allowing people to debate their ideas, very free speech absolutist. And when you are tolerant to those that are intolerant, this is the paradox of tolerance, you're going to result in having a community that's in a very particular lean, right? When you allow like neo-Nazis and whatnot to be in your community, alt-righters, white nationalists, etc., to be in your community, functionally, you're only going to end up having a community of those people for the most part, because most left-leaning people or people who are part of the groups that Nazis aren't a big fan of aren't going to find it pleasurable to spend any time in your community. And I think that's probably has something to do with why you have such a right-wing bend now on in terms of viewership on the channel.
Yeah, I mean, do they think that like if you push people, I mean, this has been a thing that's happened with us in general is, they have tried to get us to do what they want. They want to push right-wingers off of everything that they can, and we didn't listen, so then they went towards trying to go over us and trying to get us shut down. We went through like 5 or 6 discords. We went through a lot of shit. They've been trying to get our we don't even like stream to Twitch anymore because we know that like we're just going to get banned, and it's not even worth it because then we won't be able to have people who on Twitch to come on our channel. But do left-wingers think that if these right-wingers are just like not around here, that they just somehow their views just go away? They just don't exist? No, they're going to still be there. And if anything, they're going to go into the deeper, darker areas of the web, and they're going to maybe even get radicalized further. Like, I would rather a space, if people are willing to get out of their echo chamber, and not a lot of people are, to take advantage of that and let people have these discussions, especially on social media is the best place you freaking can have these discussions, rather where in the streets.
Okay.
You got it. And checking for last questions. I think that's it. Do want to say, folks, it has been a true treat. Lots of fun tonight. Our guests are linked in the description, so if you want to hear more from them, you can. One last thank you, Brittany and Xander. It's been a true pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You should shout out the Dallas show one more time.
Oh, I'm going to. In fact, I got to tell you, folks, stick around. If you're watching live right now, I'm going to be back in just a moment with a post-credit scene updating you on some of the juicy upcoming debates that are happening in Dallas on January 15th and 16th, including the one that you can see at the bottom right of your screen. Elijah Schaefer and Destiny collide for the first time in person. It is going to be a juicy one on whether or not religion and government can overlap. So, we have many other ones that I'll be talking about, including some with Xanderhal himself. And we will be right back with that in just a moment, so stick around. And thanks one more time for Ian Xanderhal for a great debate.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
We're backstage, so thank you guys. It has been a true pleasure. Feel free if you'd like to
My
upload
dad's
the
name
debate.
was on the freaking thing.
Oh, they couldn't see it. Don't worry, it's too small.
Somebody
No,
did that.
believe me. It is going to be a tremendous debate, and you can upload it so that way they can see that your real name is Steven. Now, I am
Let's
so
not like
excited.
announce it. Oh, but I forgot Xander.
I didn't even realize it until you pointed it out. So they would know.
Somebody else pointed it out to me.
That's
Yeah, I'm
funny.
yes for some reason. I logged in and made an account,
Just
but
got doxxed from this.
But thank you guys for real. Feel free to upload the sweet debate if you'd like, if you haven't already. Xander, I know you're streaming. And I will see you guys hopefully in the future. I've got to jump back on and promote this
Alrighty.
event.
thank you for having me on.
Thank
Yeah.
you guys. Have a
Thanks.
good night.
Thank you. Have a good one, Brittany. Thank you for talking to me today. It's been fun.
Wait, am I still on?
Yeah, I think
Here,
we're still in the thing.
bye.
Check this out.
Have a good one, everybody.
Okay, good night.
Well, that was fun. That was a good debate. How'd I do, chat? How'd I do?